Most people do not lose retirement all at once. They lose pieces of it slowly, through bills they thought they could handle, payments they assumed would be temporary, and costs that seemed manageable until the paycheck stopped feeling large enough. For years, many Americans were told retirement was about reaching a number in a 401k, a number in a savings account, a Social Security check, maybe a house that would finally be paid off, or at least close enough to feel safe. But there is another number sitting underneath the whole plan. It is quieter, it is harder to predict. And for many middle-class families, it may be the number that decides whether retirement happens on time, gets pushed back, or becomes something far more uncertain. That number is the cost of healthcare. Healthcare does not always arrive like a dramatic crisis. Sometimes it arrives as a monthly premium, a deductible, a prescription refill, a specialist visit, a dental bill, a test that is only partly covered, a small medical balance that lands on the kitchen table right beside the grocery receipt, the utility bill, the car payment, and the credit card statement. That is what makes this problem so easy to underestimate. It does not always look like disaster. It often looks normal. And that is where the danger begins. For many Americans, healthcare is no longer just a medical issue. It has become a retirement issue. It affects when people feel safe enough to leave work. It affects how much of a Social Security check is truly available. It affects whether savings stay untouched, or slowly become the backup plan for every bill insurance does not fully cover. According to the research, only 49% of U.S. adults were considered healthcare cost secure in 2025, down from 61% in 2022. Around 30% of adults skipped care because of cost, and 20% recently could not afford prescribed medicine. Behind those numbers are private decisions most people do not talk about. Waiting before making the appointment, stretching a prescription longer than feels comfortable, putting a medical bill on a credit card and hoping next month is easier, looking at the calendar and realizing retirement may have to wait, not because of lifestyle, but because health coverage feels too uncertain. For someone younger, a medical bill can be painful. But for someone in their 50s, 60s, or early 70s, it can carry a different weight. There is less time to recover from mistakes, less time for savings to rebuild, less room for a bad year. The mortgage may still be there, the car payment may still be there. Groceries, insurance, utilities, and taxes do not disappear just because someone is getting older. And then healthcare comes in, not as one expense, but as a second budget. Many people reach their early 60s believing Medicare will make the problem disappear. And Medicare is important. For many retirees, it provides essential protection. But Medicare is not the same as free healthcare. In 2026, the standard Medicare Part B premium is $200.90 per month. The Part B deductible is $283. Original Medicare often includes 20% co-insurance for many covered services after the deductible. And according to KFF, Medicare beneficiaries spent an average of $6,459 out of pocket on healthcare in 2023. That is why the sentence "I'm on Medicare" can sound more secure than it actually feels. A retiree may still have premiums, still have prescriptions, still have deductibles, still have dental costs, vision costs, specialist visits, and uncovered expenses. For some households, those costs are manageable. For others, they become the quiet subtraction that happens before the rest of the month even begins. The Social Security check arrives. Then healthcare takes its share. Then housing takes its share. Then food, gas, insurance, and debt take theirs. And what is left may not feel like retirement. It may feel like careful survival. KFF found that in 2022, out-of-pocket healthcare spending equaled 39% of average Social Security income per Medicare beneficiary. That does not mean every retiree faces the same burden, but it shows why healthcare can become one of the strongest forces inside a retirement budget. The real problem is not only the bill itself. The real problem is what the bill does to confidence. Retirement requires more than money. It requires a feeling that the money can hold, that the plan can survive a bad month, that one diagnosis, one prescription change, one specialist visit, or one uncovered cost will not throw everything off balance. And for many Americans, that confidence is getting harder to find. The pressure often begins before Medicare even starts. A person may be 61 or 62, tired from decades of work, ready to slow down, and still unable to leave because health insurance is tied to the job. Medicare generally begins at 65. Full Social Security retirement age is 67 for many people born in 1960 or later. That gap can become a trap. A worker may not stay because the job is fulfilling. They may stay because the health insurance is too valuable to lose. A couple may not delay retirement because they failed to plan. They may delay it because one spouse is not yet Medicare eligible. A household may be able to cover normal bills, but not feel brave enough to face medical uncertainty without employer coverage. This is one of the quietest forms of financial pressure in America. It does not always show up as bankruptcy. It shows up as one more year before retiring, one more year of commuting, one more year of meetings, overtime, stress, and physical wear, one more year of telling yourself that freedom is close, but not close enough to risk the insurance gap. Fidelity estimated that a 65-year-old retiring in 2025 may spend $172,500 on healthcare and medical expenses in retirement. That is an estimate, not a promise or a rule for every household. But it gives shape to something many people already feel. Healthcare is not a side cost of retirement. It can become one of its central costs. And when the cushion is already thin, even smaller bills can become serious. The Federal Reserve found that 26% of adults skipped medical expenses because of cost in the prior year. It also found that 63% of adults could cover a $400 emergency expense with cash or equivalent, which means many households could not do so comfortably. This is where the story becomes less about healthcare policy and more about ordinary life. A bill does not have to be enormous to cause damage. It only has to arrive when the checking account is already tight. It only has to land in the same month as the car repair, the insurance renewal, the higher grocery bill, or the credit card payment that never seems to shrink. And this is where many households begin to lose control without noticing. The medical bill goes on a credit card, the retirement contribution gets reduced, the appointment gets delayed, the dental work waits. The emergency fund gets used for something that was not supposed to happen, but always seems to happen eventually. Nothing looks reckless from the outside. The household may still look stable. The car is still in the driveway. The lights are still on. The bills are still being paid, somehow. But underneath that appearance of stability, the margin is getting smaller. The trap is not always poverty. Sometimes, the trap is appearing comfortable while privately running out of room. AARP found that 7% of retirees had unretired in the prior 6 months, and among those who returned to work, 48% said the primary reason was to make money. That does not mean healthcare was the only reason, but it fits the larger pattern. Retirement is becoming harder to hold onto when monthly expenses keep rising and medical costs remain uncertain. AARP also found that 42% of adults age 50 and older who are not yet retired had less than $50,000 in retirement savings. For households like that, healthcare is not a distant concern. It is one of the expenses that can decide whether retirement feels possible at all. This is the part that many people sense but rarely say out loud. Retirement is not just about wanting to stop working. It is about whether stopping feels safe. A person can work for 40 years and still be afraid to leave the job. A couple can sit at the table, run the numbers, and still feel one bill away from changing the plan. A retiree can have Medicare, Social Security, and some savings, and still wonder why the month feels tighter than expected. The fear is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. It is the silence after opening a bill. It is the hesitation before calling the doctor. It is the pride that keeps someone from telling their adult children how tight things really are. It is the thought, late at night, that maybe the system moved faster than they could prepare for. And that fear is not a personal failure. It is a financial reality many households are trying to manage with limited room for error. Healthcare costs are difficult because they are both predictable and unpredictable. You can expect premiums. You can expect some prescriptions. You can expect routine care, but you cannot always predict the timing, the size, or the chain reaction of a medical expense. One bill can become a balance. One balance can become interest. One delayed appointment can become a bigger concern. 1 year of working longer can become the new plan. The goal is not to scare people. Fear does not make bills smaller. But clarity can make the problem easier to name. Healthcare should not be treated as something separate from retirement. It belongs inside the retirement conversation, beside Social Security, housing, debt, groceries, insurance, and savings. Because the question is not only how much money someone has saved. The question is what that money will be asked to survive. For many middle-class Americans, retirement is no longer a clean line between working and resting. It is a negotiation with costs that do not retire when you do. The paycheck may stop, the bills do not, and that is the quiet warning. Healthcare may not always be the biggest bill in the house. It may not be the loudest. It may not arrive with the drama people expect. But month after month, year after year, it can take just enough from the plan to move the finish line further away. For anyone who has looked at retirement and felt both hope and hesitation, that feeling deserves respect. It is not weakness, it is awareness, because sometimes the most important financial truth is not that people failed to plan. It is that the plan was built in a world where the costs kept changing. And for many Americans, the healthcare bill may be the one that quietly delays retirement.